Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Have an absolutely intriguing show lined up for you today, folks. I want to thank Alan Warren, first of all, for forwarding me this guest today and this book. This book, folks, blew me away. It's called Blood in the Badge. I got to tell you, first of all, one of the stories that absolutely grabs me by the collar, draws me in, not only are mob stories, I think we're all into mob stories, but this story today has to do with mob and police corruption. When you put the two of them together for me, it's like the most, what's a good way of putting it? It's like a true crime aphrodisiac for me, right? It's like the type of story that I can't get enough of. It's the type of story that I have to, I don't know. I can't look away from. I have to get more and more of. And this book absolutely did it for me. This book, I got to tell you, is probably one of the best books I've read in the last couple of years. Blood in the Badge is a story of, well, you know what? I'm gonna bring our guest in. We're gonna have him go over the meat and potatoes of it. But is a story of two police officers who, let's just say, got over in New York and got over in a big way. But one of those police officers had ties to organized crime, but tried to make it seem like, you know what? My hands are clean. But were they? We're going to talk to our guest, Michael Cannell, who is the author of this wonderful book, about whether the line was that clear. Is the line that clear here with all of our players? And why that line might not have been so clear. And how does it stay clear? How can we stay clear even in a time in New York City where supposedly the department had been cleaned up? You know, in the 70s, they supposedly, after a huge corruption scandal, supposedly got rid of corrupt cops. Yet, in the background, the dirty cops continued to thrive. Folks, I'm excited to talk about today's book, Blood in the Badge. Let's bring in our guest now. Michael Cannell is the author of A Brother Betrayed, The Man Behind the Rise and Fall of Murder, Inc. Gosh, I want to talk to him about that book, too. And three other works of nonfiction. He has worked as an editor at the New York Times and has contributed to the New Yorker and many other publications. He lives in New York City. I tell you what, we'll have a link to his website, michaelcannell.com, so you can learn more about him. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome him in for the first time here on True Crime Tuesday, Michael Cannell. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, Tim, it's great to be here. It's really fun to be here with you.
Well, it's, again, my pleasure, my honor to have you here. This book, my God, I may gush over you here for the next hour or so because I was thoroughly intrigued with it. You know, there's something about New York City, the police department there that in the five boroughs that thoroughly intrigues me, in the history of the five boroughs, and I think we're all intrigued by the mob in general, right? And mob stories, and you know, it's always said that, well, everything before Gotti was the romantic period, and really it was the beginning of Gotti that was beginning of the downfall of the mob. But I think you have to take that off the table. I really think you have to look at the intricacies, and you have in this book, of what it was, what this organization is, and how it continued to evolve and change, and with the times figure out, okay, we still need to make money, we still need to earn, we still need to figure out new ways of depravity. And that's what this book is all about, new ways of depravity. And it's amazing how that mind works. And I think you really do capture how depraved humanity can be.
Yeah, it's pretty depraved. I mean, it really is. It's dark. It doesn't get much darker than this. This is primarily, I'll just give you a little recap, if I may.
Yes,
this is
please.
Primarily the story of a decorated detective, a high-ranking detective, by all accounts, an effective cop, in the NYPD in the 80s and early 90s, a man named Louis Eppolito. He was born into a mafia family. His father was a capo or captain in the Gambino crime family. He was known as Fat the Gangster. And his uncle was also a capo, and he was known as Jimmy the Clam, right? So these are like names right out of The Sopranos.
Right.
Not surprisingly, Louis Eppolito's father, Fat the Gangster, was a violent and abusive character, and Louis grew up in an abusive household. And weeks after his father died of a heart attack, Louis joined the police department. He went to the police academy, lied about his family background. I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made, because in those days, during the Vietnam War, the NYPD would have probably overlooked anything in order to sign up recruits. The Vietnam draft was depleting their ranks. At the police academy, Louis Eppolito was in a class where they showed the Mafia family tree, and one of his classmates said, "Oh, look, Louis, there's somebody with your last name." And he said, "Yes, that's my father." Louis, I think, tried to be a good cop, but his family reeled him back in. Families have a way of doing that. He couldn't escape his bloodlines. And pretty soon he was doing favors for his family members and his friends. He was assigned to a unit called Robbery South in Brooklyn. And his partner there was a man named Stephen Caracappa. So like a lot of successful partnerships, they were opposites in every way. Louis was a big, heavy man, loud, boorish, boastful, sloppy, reckless. But his partner, Stephen Caracappa, was trim, quiet to the point of being almost mute, meticulously dressed. And one of the mysteries of the story is what happened between them that caused them to collaborate on the worst kinds of crimes. They were minor league corruption players until they went on to the Lucchese crime family payroll. And they were paid a retainer, $4,000 a month, to give the Lucchese underboss sensitive police information, who was about to be arrested, who was under surveillance, whose phones were tapped. But most importantly, who in the mafia was a rat? Who in the mafia was a squealer? Who was secretly talking to the police? And the worst part of it is that Eppolito and Caracappa would then be paid a bonus to facilitate the murder of those rats. And they did. They were involved in at least a dozen killings, and they got away with this for more than a decade.
Isn't that something? You know, I want to take us back a little bit here. I want to talk about Louis Eppolito, and I want to talk about as he's coming up through the ranks. You do a brilliant job here, Michael, of painting the little bit of undercurrent as Louis really does want to be a good cop. He doesn't. You can tell. You paint certain scenarios throughout the book where he's swearing up and down to his colleagues that he's a fine, upstanding cop, yet at the same time, on the side, he's visiting his uncle, but they're not talking business. But at the same time, his uncle slips him an envelope and says, go on a vacation. But he doesn't report it. But at the same time, he slips the envelope to his wife, knowing that the money doesn't touch hands directly. And if it doesn't touch hands directly, it doesn't have to be reported. It's those little bits of, we're going to skirt the line here. We're just going to touch. We're barely going to touch, but we're not touching. It's the, if we just play by the rules, but we're not playing by the rules. it's the, I understand the line. And I'm gonna flirt with it, and I'm gonna show you that I'm a good cop, but I know I'm not, but I am. I'm a good guy. And he did it with charm. And he knew that charm was going to get him so far too.
Yeah, I mean, some people used an expression those days to refer to corrupt cops. They referred to the ones who were engaged in kind of low-level corruption as grass eaters, and the ones who were involved in more serious corruption were known as meat eaters. And Louis graduated from grass eating to meat eating. I think in his mind, he was unclear for his entire adult life whether he was a mafiosi masquerading as a detective or whether he was a detective masquerading as a mafiosi. It was not, I think his identity, I don't think he was ever clear about his identity. And, one thing that muddled that distinction was that he learned the mafia way from his father, Fat the Gangster. Mm-hmm. And as a young cop stationed in Harlem and in Brooklyn, he found that the mafia techniques of intimidation and bullying and force worked pretty well in the police department. And so in his mind, I think there wasn't that much difference between the mafia and the police department. And, you can kind of imagine how we would feel that way. These were both hierarchical organizations. They were rule oriented, and he was finding his way in the police department by applying the mafia rules to the police department.
And now here's the dangerous game here, Michael. Like I had mentioned earlier in the program, the fact that, we had gone through corruption abound in the New York Police Department in the 70s. And we had just swept all that out. There'd been this wide sweeping wave of anti-corruption throughout the New York Police Department. So you had to know that Eppolito and Caracappa had known this. They had to have had this in their head that, eyes are everywhere, right? So how are we going to jump back into getting our taste when they have to have eyes on us? They have to know that they're looking for some of the stuff that we know we're going to do. So how are we going to build a better model of criminal if that's the direction we're going to go in? Especially if you're going to deal with organized crime. I mean, surely they know that they're looking for organized crime.
Well, here's an example. I'll just try to give you an example quickly of what you're talking about. The FBI and the New Jersey police raided the home of a known Sicilian heroin smuggler named Rosario Gambino. He was a scion of the Gambino crime family. And in Gambino's home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, they were astonished to find that Gambino had in his possession his own police file. Somebody had passed Gambino's police file to him. So who did that? The police found Louis Eppolito's fingerprints on the file. Clearly, he had done it. He was brought before Internal Affairs, investigated. The case was dismissed. He was acquitted. What's more, he was promoted to detective second grade and given his choice of any precinct in the city that he wanted to work in. So why did that happen? I wasn't able to really find the smoking gun there, but I have to believe that it happened because the NYPD, the police commissioner, Ben Ward, had suffered through a lot of embarrassing headlines, as you've said, Serpico, the Knapp Commission, and they did not have the tolerance for any more of that. And so they swept this They swept this under the rug. And maybe it was easier to do that because Eppolito had been, until then, had a very solid record as a detective and a beat cop. But that was an opportunity to nip this in the bud before it became a much larger problem, and they bungled it. They botched it.
But isn't it telling, when he's given that choice, when they say you can pick anywhere you want to pick, that Eppolito says, well, okay, I want to go right to the neighborhoods. I want to go right to the candy dish. That's my favorite, right? I want to go right to the place, Michael, where I know and love. I want to go to the neighborhood where the influence is going to be strongest for me to get in trouble. Is that now, do his bosses say, okay, go ahead and do it because they just want him to be quiet and not get them in trouble? Or do they do that because they want to see if he's going to get in trouble?
Well, no, I think it's the former and not the latter. I don't think they were setting him up to get in trouble. No, he went to the 6-3 precinct, which is the heartland, Bensonhurst, South Brooklyn, the heartland of the Mafia, where he would walk down the street and be greeted by the wise guys who were drinking espresso in cafes. No, after he was acquitted by Internal Affairs, he very loudly declared that he had been framed simply because he was an Italian American. And he had a kind of spiel, and he was very, he had a message for the newspapers, which was the police brass set me up. They have a prejudice against me. Yes, I come from a sketchy family, but they're trying to tar all Italian Americans as being mafiosi. And I think I mean, this is speculation on my part, but I think that they were inclined to treat him with kid gloves because they wanted this problem to go away and they wanted him to be quiet.
At that point, I mean, you could argue this, Michael. You really could argue that the NYPD has created their own monster. I mean, you've basically set up the conditions for them to create a villain of their own making. You've fed the monster his own perfect conditions. He's in his own element. You've put him with his own kind. If you want to breed the perfect villain, you've given him the ammunition to do so.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. And what's more, his best friend and partner, Stephen Caracappa, went to the Major Case Squad, which was the elite unit that investigated and coordinated the most important cases in the city. What's more, Stephen Caracappa was the point person for information and files in the Major Case Squad. So he was privy not just to police information, but FBI information, DEA information. So he could not possibly have been in a better position to know all the details of the Mafia investigations, much of which he and Eppolito then passed along to the Mafia.
And whatever Caracappa didn't have come across his desk, he went out and got, and he went out and got through sometimes nefarious means, which, I mean, he by all means was not a goody two shoes either, that Eppolito drug with him and made him do things. I mean, they were almost the perfect pair, which is amazing that you get not just one, but two that are like that in an era where really the New York Police Department was trying hard not to have this type of corruption happen. They flourished in that type of environment.
Yeah, I mean, you put it really well. They by turning their backs on this problem, the NYPD invited this problem to flourish and to become, I think, what most people would call the worst case of police abuse and corruption in the NYPD history, if not the history of policing in this country.
Yeah, it's astounding. Some of the capers is the only thing that comes to mind here that they managed to pull off. I want to go over a little bit before we go to break here, a little bit of the mob history that allows them to ascend, not only in corruption in the NYPD, but ascend throughout mob ranks, because it takes a little bit of movement in the head of the mob in order for them to become a crystal ball, and that's the way that they're known as, Eppolito and Caracappa, for one particular mafia don. Now, there's some movement in the Lucchese and Gambino families in order for this to happen, in order for them to ascend. Can you tell us how it started and who had to be bumped off in order for them to ascend?
Well, I think you're referring to, if I understand you correctly, you're referring to the underboss of the Lucchese family, who was a man named Gaspipe Queso. If you talk about the mafia, you're kind of talking roughly about two categories of people. The majority of the mafiosi were soldiers. I mean, they were soldiers who took orders and they followed all the mafia rules. There were certain characters who were really like sociopaths or serial killers, and Gaspipe was one of those. And like many, I shouldn't say many, but like some of his peers, he was subverting the. Excuse me, he was subverting the natural order of the mafia. He was, the mafia bosses really felt like the mafia, middle ranks of the mafia should not deal in drugs. But of course they did, because that's where the money was. And so in this period in the 80s, the middle ranks began to make a huge amount of money, and they kind of went rogue. And they operated by their own rules. And Gaspipe fell into this category. He hired these two corrupt cops through an intermediary, a drug dealer named Bert Kaplan. And for a long time, Gaspipe Casso didn't know who the cops were. That's why he called them the crystal ball, because he didn't know their identity. Of course, he called them a crystal ball because they were able to foresee the future. So eventually, Gaspipe, who had spent his entire adult life killing informants, became an informant himself. And then Eppolito and Caracappa were really in trouble, because Gaspipe knew about everything that Eppolito had done, because he had done it with them, and he was willing to talk to the FBI about it.
Now, I'm trying to remember the name of the Don before Gaspipe that had to be moved out of the way in order for Gaspipe to ascend. That was. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, Gaspipe was a member of the Lucchese of the Lucchese family, and in those days, the RICO laws, Rudy Giuliani and others were using the RICO laws to bust the mob. For the first time, prosecutors were able to go after the mob bosses and not just the little guys who pulled the trigger. And so there was a general reshuffling of the leadership at that time. And Gaspipe was able to move up the ranks for this reason in a way that he otherwise wouldn't have.
So they went away because of Giuliani. Giuliani had basically, he had nailed a bunch of them because of the RICO laws, correct? And a bunch of them had went away. He had gotten the talk right before they had gone away. And
yeah, I mean, there was some internal struggle as to who would take over the who would take over the family. Gaspipe was never the boss of the Lucchese family, but essentially, in some ways, he was the unofficially the boss because of his wealth, because of his influence, because he controlled so many of the money ways in his domain, and also simply because he was such a vicious person that even his friends and associates were terrified of him.
There was a secondary boss, if I remember right, who did he was the money guy. He was the earner, but he didn't want to be the decision maker. There's a secondary decision maker, correct?
Exactly. His Gaspipe's friend Vic Amaro was the nominal head of the Lucchese family at this time.
Okay. Yet the Lucchese family kind of, what's a better way to put it, Michael? They kind of they kind of said, well, we realize that Vic is the head, but it's kind of like a Tony Soprano situation. Like Junior was the head, we realized, but Tony's the guy who moves the family. He's the guy who, he's the guy who really has power. So that's kind of what Gaspipe was. He kind of, although he made the money, he really had.
Yeah, I mean, Gaspipe probably could have been the head if he had the title, if he'd wanted to. But honestly, he really preferred to be focused on making money, on his money schemes, the illegal money schemes, which he had partially set up with the exalted drug dealer Burt Kaplan. This was the 80s, and in some ways, the mafia was analogous to what was happening across the bay, across the river in Wall Street. It was all about money. It was the go-go 80s. And so Gaspipe, a generation earlier, Gaspipe would have wanted to become the head. He would have become the head. But in this period, it was about making money, and he more comfortably could concentrate on the money making by remaining the underboss.
Now, the government had it in their head that Gaspipe ran the Lucchese family. In their minds, they believed that, didn't they?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that they believed that he was the boss, but they surely saw him as the primary decision maker.
Okay. And one of the things that differed with Gaspipe as opposed to other gangsters in the Lucchese family, the other Lucchese family gangsters pretty much lived by the code. They lived within their means. They pretty much, they tried to stay as quiet as possible. Gaspipe was not like that. He lived pretty extravagantly, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Gaspipe, like John Gotti, was a throwback to the golden age of gangsters. He was a throwback to the days of Lucky Luciano and Dutch Schultz, who would parade about town in expensive suits, surrounded by women and expensive cars. Gaspipe, I mean, this is an example of what we talked about earlier about how this kind of new generation that came along didn't follow the old rules, and they didn't pay obeisance to the old bosses and their way of doing things. Gaspipe was a product of the 80s, and he had it and he was gonna flaunt it.
Some of the more interesting stories in the book, and again, we're going to leave a lot of this so you guys can pick up the book, Blood and the Badge. He's such a fascinating character. I love the fact that you mentioned in there he hated his nickname, that his father gave him his nickname, correct?
Yeah, it had actually been his father's nickname, and I mean there are different accounts of how his father got that name. I think most likely he got it because he used a literal gas pipe to wield his influence as a dock worker.
Yeah. But as far as Gaspipe went, he well, I'm not gonna give up. He had a designer for this house that he was building, and just the fact that what was it? The doors on the house alone cost $40,000.
Yeah, it was an example of an architecture style which some people referred to as mob architecture. It was on the waterfront in the neighborhood of Mill Basin. It was and just a piece of extravagance. And Tony Soprano had a big house, but this was nothing like that. This was a mansion with, tricked out mansion. And just as an aside, it was reported in Newsday, a Long Island newspaper, that Gaspipe's wife was having an affair with the architect. The architect was found dead in the trunk of a car, Oof. Not surprisingly. And Gaspipe also had reason to believe that a federal prosecutor named Charles Rose had leaked this bit of information, whether it was true or not, to Newsday. And Gaspipe then hired our cops, Eppolito and Caracappa, to set up on, as they say, to surveil the prosecutor with the intention of killing him. In fact, they never did kill him. But it gives you a little bit of insight into Gaspipe's way of operating.
I'm going to leave the story for the book, but there's a very funny story about Charles Rose himself, for those of you who are fans of CBS. We'll just leave it that way, and you can go find that out for yourself. I laughed hysterically, Michael, at that story. It was very, very funny. I tell you what, we'll take a break right here. When we come back, I want to get into Eppolito and Caracappa and get into some of their dirtier crimes. These guys, by all means, were not just your typical, we'll write you a fake ticket and you're on your way type dirty crimes. These were not your headlights out and punch your headlight out and you're on your way. These guys got dirty. And dirty to the point where, let's just say, lives were lost. And they did the mob's work and then some. Man, I tell you, this book, folks, is fascinating. Michael Cannell is our guest, and Blood and the Badge is the name of the book. We have a link in the description of this program. And again, folks, I encourage you to go get this book. It's a wonderful tale, not only of police corruption, but police corruption in the mob. It's got a detailed, it's actually Blood and the Badge, the Mafia, 2 killer cops, and a scandal that shocked the nation. I want to give you the full title. So but if you look up Blood and the Badge, if you're on Amazon or if you're on Barnes and Noble, wherever you're at, you put in Blood and the Badge, it will come up. But it's Blood and the Badge, the Mafia, 2 killer cops, and a scandal that shocked the nation is the full title of the book. When we come back, we'll be talking about Eppolito and Caracappa and exactly what kind of dirt they were doing for the Mafia and for Gaspipe himself, and just how badly this spiraled out of control. When we come back with Michael Cannell, our guest. Again, the link is in the description of this program. Go get the book while we're gone. When we come back, deceit, dirt, and what kind of crimes 2 cops commit for the Mafia. When we come back on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is author Michael Cannell. It's a beautiful book, folks. Blood and the Badge, the Mafia, 2 killer cops, and a scandal that shocked the nation. It's available right now wherever you get your books, but we have a link in the description of this program. I'm encouraging you, go get this book, folks. It's amazing. First of all, I mentioned at the top of the program, if it involves a mob or mafia story, New York City, and police corruption, you've got me already. But when it's written as eloquently as this is, I'm hooked, folks. This has got to be one of the best books I've read probably in the last few years. I got to, again, Michael, from beginning to end, I was hooked on this. Not only that, but there's a Hollywood section to this as well. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit in this book, and then we'll come back and start to talk a little bit about the crimes of Eppolito and Caracappa here. Eppolito at one point decides, you know what? And we're going to go ahead a little bit here. As they get into retirement, he decides, you know what, I'm gonna take my story and I'm gonna roll it into a book, and then I'm gonna try to write screenplays.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Eppolito and Caracappa appear to have gotten away with this series of criminal and murderous activities. They collected their generous police pensions and they retired to a subdivision on the outskirts of Las Vegas. And oddly enough, they lived directly across the street from each other. And I think there's a reason for that. I think the reason is that Stephen Caracappa, always quiet, always careful, always circumspect, was worried about what his partner, Louis Eppolito, was going to do. Louis was a loose cannon. He was a loudmouth. Now, Louis was always romanced by his association with the Mafia and perhaps romanced by his life as a detective. And in his mind, he was going to parlay that into a Hollywood career. He wanted to play a tough guy in movies. And in fact, he did. He had small parts in a dozen movies. Most notably, he played a character known as Fat Andy in Goodfellas, the Martin Scorsese classic. He was, as you say, writing screenplays. He was trying to get them produced, and he also wrote a memoir. Now, if you had committed a long list of crimes, including homicide, with one of New York's 5 crime families, would you not keep it quiet? I mean, would you not try to leave it in the rearview mirror? Louis just couldn't do that. It was just not in his makeup to do that. So he wrote a book. Of course, he didn't describe any explicit crimes he had committed in the book, but nonetheless, it was a blunder. His partner, who lived across the street, Stephen Caracappa, was furious because his thinking was somebody who has seen us abducting Israel Greenwald, somebody who has seen us abducting Jimmy Heidel, somebody who has seen us pull the trigger on the side of the Belt Parkway, can now recognize our photo in the book and can attach our names to our identities. And that's exactly what happened. That was the beginning of the end for them.
Which is insane. This guy who, and you would think, okay, so he had a father, he had an uncle who's in the business, who is part of the family business, this thing that we do, right? That all their lives probably beat it into his head. You don't do this. You don't go write screenplays. You don't go put out books. You don't shout it to the mountaintops that this is what we do. You don't put your face out there.
Yeah, I mean it's the old school, just as you say, the old school mafia way was to keep everything really quiet and really discreet. And the most of the old mafia bosses had made millions and millions of dollars, but they lived in completely nondescript circumstances. And the last thing they would do would be to, go out and buy a new car after some illegal windfall. Everything was about discretion. Right. But I think what happened with Louis was that he was tapping into this mutual love affair that Hollywood and the mob have always had going back to the 1930s. It's the kind of classic case of art imitating life or life imitating art. Bugsy Siegel lived in Hollywood and made a lot of Hollywood friends. There was a kind of association there, and so I think he felt like it would be, if not easy, then possible for him to capitalize on his mob associations and develop this Hollywood career. And what he craved most in life was attention, I think. And he just couldn't resist doing this.
The level of narcissism on Eppolito's part was, man, you could feel it dripping out of the book. You just could. I mean, all the way down to, and you mentioned it, in his Las Vegas residence, he has a gun with Mafia cop etched into the side of it, which just tells you, I mean, come on. That just tells you that he's so proud of himself and he needs to show off. He needs to show up and show out, right? That just tells you that I need attention. I need people to recognize me. Whereas Caracappa, as you put it eloquently in the book as well, he's in bed after dinner. He takes quiet walks around his subdivision. He's the perfect neighbor. He is the quintessential gangster. He is the guy who never attracts attention. And
I mean, it is, I will just say as an aside that Eppolito was the one who played the tough guy. He was the one who was loud and bullying. But when it came time for them to pull the trigger, it was Caracappa who pulled the trigger. Caracappa was, if you met him, you might mistake him for upper management somewhere. But he had an absolute heart of darkness. He had a heart of a cold heart, and he was, I think, of the two, the one who was vicious, more vicious.
And I think you also put it eloquently in the book, the way Caracappa's eyes were, the look he gave, that he was not, if you got him one-on-one, when you went to look at him, he had that cold stare, like there was nothing there, like a shark.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a number of DEA agents who were surveilling and trailing Eppolito and Caracappa in Las Vegas. And one of them had followed Caracappa virtually everywhere he went. And he said that there were a couple of occasions when he was, for example, at a gas station and Caracappa looked over at him. And the way he described it was that it was chilling, just the look in his eye, the darkness. And for a DEA agent who was no stranger to bad guys, I think that means something.
Oh, yeah, big time. I mean, because you figure those guys aren't shook. I mean, they've been in the heart of it. And it shouldn't take a lot to shake them, right? But if that says something, that's a testimony. So you'd mentioned a little bit about a little of the dirt these two had done together. Where does it start? Where do these guys commit the first act? What is the tipping point where these guys, the point of no return, where these guys decide, you know what, we're going to do something for these made men, and really, rather than just feed information, let's actually do something for these guys. Let's earn our money. Let's commit an act.
Well, the way it started was that the architect of all of this and the intermediary, the drug lord, Burt Kaplan, was a man who had a gambling habit, and he was hopelessly in debt throughout his adult life. And the way he resolved that was to get in bed with the mob and to make deals with the mob. He was arrested many times. He went to prison several times. And during one of his prison stints, he spent a lot of time with a man named Frankie Santora, who was a Gambino associate. And as they were about to leave prison, as they were about to be released, Santora said to Burt Kaplan, "My cousin is a detective. His name is Louis Eppolito. If you need any favors, if you need Louis to do something, he will do it. He will do anything. He will do anything." Now, Burt Kaplan's reaction was, at first, I don't want anything to do with this detective, Louis Eppolito. I do not want to bring a detective into my business dealings. But in fact, he did contact Santora and ask for this help. Bert Kaplan had hired a diamond dealer to sell a stolen treasury bond in London. When the diamond dealer, whose name was Israel Greenwald, returned to the US, he got off his plane at JFK Airport and the FBI grabbed him and interrogated him. Now, Bert Kaplan was terrified that Israel Greenwald was going to say what he knew, was going to implicate Bert Kaplan. The answer to this problem was to have Israel Greenwald killed. And so Bert Kaplan reached out to his old jailhouse buddy, Frank Santora, and said, I would like to hire Louis Eppolito and his friend, Stephen Caracappa, to abduct and to help us kill Israel Greenwald. And that was the beginning, that happened. And that was the beginning of this association between the mob and these two cops. They had no doubt committed many, there were many instances of petty corruption, but now they were working in the big times. Now they had a patron in the mob.
That story, too, when you read the story of Israel Greenwald, is such a heartbreaking story because he was such a family man, such a dedicated family man, and with a young child. And his wife, for years and years and years, couldn't, young children actually, and for years and years and years couldn't reconcile the life insurance policy for him, couldn't properly have a standing within her community. I mean, there's such sad stories behind that, Michael. And at one point, you even point out in the book that they lived right across the street from where Israel had that makeshift grave. I mean, they lived right across the street from where their father was buried.
I mean, you're right. It's just, I mean, could not imagine a more tragic story because nobody knew what had happened to Israel Greenwald for many years. The family's life was suspended and held in some kind of abeyance. They couldn't get the life insurance money without a body. In some way, his wife could not move on with her life. And she was so traumatized and preoccupied by what had happened, she could no longer really function as a parent or a mother to their daughters. And as you say, at one point, they unknowingly rented an apartment across the street from the parking garage where Israel Greenwald was buried.
Yeah. I mean, I at that point, I was chilled. I was chilled to think, that those daughters at one point probably either walked to school or went to school every day, not knowing that their father was just right across the street. And that his wife left the house every day to go to work, not knowing that her husband was right across the street.
I mean, that's exactly right. And if there is any positive note in this tragic story, it's that, in fact, Eppolito and Caracappa were eventually, after many reversals and complications, they were eventually convicted. Maybe I shouldn't give away the ending, but I am.
Sure. Sure.
And, if you're writing a book like this, trials are gratifying from the writer's point of view, because now you have all the players in the same room. You have the families of the perpetrators and the families of the victims sitting in exquisite discomfort next to each other. And part of what happens is that at the sentencing, the families of the victims are given the opportunity to express themselves, to look Eppolito and Caracappa in the eye and to say to say their piece. And more than any of the many family members there, the two daughters of Israel Greenwald really delivered heart-wrenching speeches in that courtroom.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And you wonder, I mean, again, I want to leave things for the book, but you really wonder if things like that, even though you're dealing with a couple of people that are narcissistic enough and, let's face it, disconnected enough to commit a crime like that, if a testimony like that would even weigh on the souls of some scum like that. I'm just going to call it like it is.
No, I mean, I really don't think it did. In fact, Eppolito was so oblivious to the effects of his crimes, to the reality of what had transpired, that he invited the victims' families to come visit him in jail to discuss all of this.
Again, because he wanted the attention.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. He wanted to be the center of attention.
Yeah. Which again is a typical narcissistic trait. To continue to want to feed off of that and get attention off of that, to not necessarily to, like you mentioned eloquently, to be the center of attention, not to do it, not to give comfort or not to aid the victims in any way, to give them closure, but just because he wanted to continue to feed negatively off them.
Right, and it was his offering to meet with the family members was not about remorse.
No,
it was in his mind about proving that he was right.
Right. I was going to. It's interesting that you'd brought up trials. I was going to leave that for people to read about, but that's okay. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring people up to the point of the arrest in the Las Vegas years. And I think we can talk about that before we leave people today. The point up to the arrest is an interesting period. That period, and we had talked a little bit about it, that the point where they're out in Las Vegas, where Eppolito and his partner are out in Las Vegas because they had thought that they had gotten away with it. And at this point, Burt Kaplan had been busted down. He had actually, and I want to talk a little bit about that too. Burt Kaplan had been running drugs for quite some time, yet he gets busted, he gets thrown in jail, but he's an elderly man. And I want to talk just a brief moment about Burt Kaplan and how he is an organized man in a sense, but he's kind of a trope that Hollywood uses in itself. I want to draw that parallel to Eppolito screenwriting in the sense of, if you've seen Goodfellas, which, by the way, I watched Goodfellas last week, which is amazing that Eppolito was in the movie. The Henry Hill character of the man who is not of Italian blood, but on the outside looking in, Burt Kaplan could never be part of the mafia, yet spent a ton of time in jail, not wanting to flip, but observed omerta very much so, wouldn't flip for the longest time, spent 9 years in jail? Not wanting to?
He was the kind of fascinating irony is that, as you said, he was not of Italian descent, could never formally join the mafia, and yet he was more faithful for the longest time to the mafia code of silence and loyalty than many or most of his mafia associates were. But eventually he was persuaded to flip. And that was at least partially because an investigator in the Brooklyn DA's office confronted him with an accidental death, a case of mistaken identity. Eppolito and Caracappa had given bad information to the Lucchese crime family about a young man named Nicky Guido. The Luccheses wanted to kill him because he had been involved in a botched assassination against Gaspipe Queso. So Eppolito and Caracappa found Nicky Guido's address and information about him in the police files, and they passed it along. Nicky Guido was, in fact, shot to death outside his family home on Christmas Day, but it turned out to be the wrong Nicky Guido. It was a case of mistaken identity. And when confronted with this in jail by an investigator from the Brooklyn DA's office, Burt Kaplan rethought his stance. And on some level, he was a principled person. Mm-hmm. And he flipped. He became a government witness. Now, in the trial, he said that he flipped because he had concluded that if he didn't flip, Eppolito and Caracappa might flip.
Yeah.
Better to be on the witness stand than to be at the defense table. So which was it? Was it Nicky Guido, or was it that decision, a sort of calculated strategic decision? It probably was both. I'm guessing, but Kaplan was the insider that prosecutors needed in order to realistically prosecute Eppolito and Caracappa.
Because Kaplan had made a lot of money on the outside. And I mean, he did it the hard way. By all means, it was not easy money that he made. And he had even gone so far as to make it through legitimate businesses and drug businesses. And at one point, when Eppolito had gone out at first to Las Vegas and needed money, let's face it, he needed money because he had spent too much money. He had outspent his pension and wanted a loan of, what was it, $75,000 at one point. Burt Kaplan financed him rather than go to the loan shark.
Right. Burt Kaplan happened to be doing business in Las Vegas at that time undercover. He was on the lam, as the Mafia said. He was hiding. And it was in his interests, he figured, to keep Louis Eppolito happy and solvent. A Louis Eppolito who was unhappy and desperate for money was going to be a problem. So Burt Kaplan contacted his associate back in New York and arranged for him to FedEx tens of thousands of dollars out to Las Vegas, which he then gave to Eppolito. He kept some of that money for himself to bet on the Super Bowl, being a lifelong gambler. I think he lost more than he won, but in that one case, he won when he bet on the Super Bowl.
There you go. Yeah. But what's interesting about Burt Kaplan, all in all, is that, as you just pointed out, it took that one bit of strange morality. It's a strange morality play, isn't it? Of Nicky Guido. Of, you know what? They got the wrong guy. And they shot an innocent kid on Christmas. That he went, you know what? I think that's the thing that's going to flip me. Of all things. And
yeah, I mean, it's you would not think that in a story that involves dozens of deaths and bloodthirsty characters that this case of mistaken identity would affect somebody so much. It did for Burt Kaplan. It certainly did not for Gaspipe Queso, who was the one who was ordering these killings. When he was asked about it years later on 60 Minutes, he shrugged and said, "That's business. That's just the way we did business."
Well, and if we want to talk about Gaspipe Queso, when he flips because he sees He sees the business as it is. He sees the Lucchese family. He sees these young up-and-comers, and he sees no loyalty around him. And he sees the fact that everybody's flipping, and it's like rats on a sinking ship, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this was just, as we had discussed earlier, this was a time when the RICO laws were being used to bust the mob. Everything was falling apart. People were desperate. And by the way, at the same time the RICO laws came along, the Witness Protection Program came along. So that for the first time in Mafia history, people could flip, make a deal, and start over somewhere else with a new identity. That was never possible before. It was just, you couldn't get out of the Mafia once you were in it. So there was, for Gaspipe, Casso, and the other bosses, there was a problem, and that was that the ranks, the rank and file, was turning against them.
Folks, it's an incredibly interesting book. I'm not going to give away the ending. I'm not going to give away anything else more about this book. I want you to read it for yourself because, my God, it's so interesting. This case is so interesting. The characters are so interesting. Even the way that unfortunately, the way some of these victims were disposed of is interesting. I hate to put it that way, Michael. I'm not a gruesome person. I'm not a morbid person. But everything about this is fascinating. Blood and the Badge, the Mafia, 2 killer cops, and a scandal that shocked the nation. Michael Cannell, I tip my cap to you, my friend. This book, you knocked it out of the park. It's a home run. I want to thank you so much for being with us today on True Crime Tuesday.
Thank you, Tim. I really enjoyed talking to you.
The pleasure was all mine. Folks, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. It's time now for us to bring in Jessica Freeberg, and it's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time, the time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we need a co-hostess. So what I do, I take out a little hanky. I go abracadabra, alakazam, boom. I do a magic trick, and magically on my screen and in the audio here, she appears. She's lovely. She's talented. She has 3 books out there that are on the Hindustan Times #1 best-selling list now for 8 weeks straight. I know because they send me little notices in my email. She's just right across town, freezing her lovely buns off, as am I, because it's 7 below right now. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Jessica Freeberg. Jess, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. I feel like a magical fairy or like a genie in a bottle, the way you just described how you got me here.
If you dress like the genie in a bottle video, our views would go up substantially. I'm just saying.
Gosh, I don't know. I used to have a really cool genie costume. Funny story. My husband borrowed it once for Halloween, and he had to rip himself out of it because I don't even know how he got into it, but it was a cute costume. I'll have to buy another one. I'll wear it sometime, Tim.
Wow. Now that's a commitment. That is doing the bit for the show. Wow. Not even I'll dress.
I have to work out for like a solid 8 months straight first to monitor my food intake.
That's kind of overcommitting to the bit. But hey, if you want to do it, I won't stop you. But I'm just saying that's more power to you. I'll just put it that way.
It is cold here though. Boy, my dogs are just, I'm like, you guys have free pass. You can pee and poop in the house. I don't even care. I feel so bad for them right now.
I do too. It's not fit for man nor beast out there. I have a hard time just convincing myself to take the recycling out to the cans, which are just right on the other side of the garage. I have to psych myself up.
It's a lot. And this is the time of year where I'm always like, why do we live here? Why?
Right. I went out to see my nephew's hockey game on Saturday, and it was warmer at that point. I mean, it was like above zero. Yeah. But I have a parka for this occasion, which is a 56 degree below parka. It's like an explorer's parka that I got at, I mean, they don't pay for advertising, but I'll name them anyways. Burlington Coat Factory. And I got it for $45 at the time. I think I got it like $6 or 6 years ago for $45. This thing, and you can wander into today's weather at 7 below and you could be toasty warm. You won't even feel it.
Yeah, it's incredible the difference like the fabric makes and just my husband will go biking in this. Like he has this whole helmet that he wears. He looks like an alien. He really does. My kids used to think he was an alien when they'd see him in the yard coming home from biking. They'd cry. They'd be like, Mom, there's aliens in our yard. And I'd be like, where? That's so cool. And I'm like, it's just Dad.
He's just out going for a ride. Oh.
Yeah, but he gets so hot that he sweats. And so like the little parts of him that are exposed will get like little sweat sickles on them from the cold.
Oh my God. Oh.
I'm like, no, I'm going to stay inside. I might go on the treadmill to work out, but there's no way I'm going outside.
See, right now, I think it's psychological because even right now, it's seven below outside. It's not bad in my house right now, but my hands are freezing.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
I have a heated blanket on me right now, turned up on high. I'm just like, I'm cold. I don't even know why.
And right? Because we have normal heat, right?
Yep.
And I think it's a state of mind. It's a state of mind because, outside, it's the frozen planet Hoth.
It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just think, well, I shouldn't feel this way. But I know right behind me, and those of you who are watching on video, right behind me, there's a window and I could probably feel a draft from there that would freeze my neck solid.
And you hear like the sound of the cold on your house. Like every now and then I'll hear like a crack or a pop of something that's just like, it's so cold. It's just yelling and crying.
Yes. Yeah. It's the house going, no, it's like arthritis for your house. That's what it is. It's
totally.
Yes. Your house is going through as much arthritis as you are. That's what it is. And it goes, no, crack. That's exactly what it is.
It's so weird.
It's sad, really. Well, speaking of sad, we've got Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today. And boy, we have some sad stories. We've got some funny stories. We've got some ironic stories. We've got, I'll tell you, we're going to end up with not safe for work stories. And we have a palate cleanser today, which will tell you exactly how dumb our country has become.
Oh, I'm ready for that.
Let's just put it this way. Lawsuits have reached a new high, Jess. A new high as to why now we officially can't eat out in restaurants. You might as well just prepare your food at home. Don't go to another restaurant ever again, and especially don't use a condiment. I know that sounds bad, but yeah, just stop, people. Just stop getting food from restaurants because you're too dumb to handle it.
I can't wait for this one.
It's coming up just a little bit. But first, we're going to go to California, Jess. Unfortunately, as you know, the wildfires out in California may not be so wild after all. It turns out that some of those fires may have been started by arsonists.
I hate that.
And we know this because two such dumb criminals were caught in the Palisades fire area. It turns out, we know this because these two people were incredibly dumb about how they went about it. Here's the story. Two people were arrested for impersonating firefighters using illegitimate fire trucks.
What?
Yes. You can't make this up. Now, for those of you who watch TMZ on a regular basis, there was a man who actually showed up in the hills in Hollywood and was caught by one of the men living up there. Now, keep in mind, he wandered into an area, Jess, where there's only 13 people who live in these hills. Okay. And this man came out, mind you, everybody has a cell phone that has a video camera on it, right?
Right.
He wanders into the hills, and I'll make this a short story, as short as I can. He wanders up into this area with a giant backpack on in an area where everybody knows each other. up a trail with a lot of vegetation, and he looks lost. Now, this man had went to bring his dog out to do his business. The dog is doing his business, and he happened to bring his 2 young kids out with him. Now, as soon as he saw this guy coming up his trail, which, mind you, this trail comes up to his house. There's only one place this trail goes, right? It's one way in, one way out. This trail is. It goes no other direction than up to this guy's house. This guy comes out and turns his phone on, points it right at this guy with a giant backpack and says, "Excuse me, sir. I'm just wondering, because we do have a lot of tumultuous things going on right now. And for the safety and sake of this neighborhood, I have to ask you what you're doing here." And he says, and this is all on tape, he says, "Oh, I'm just going for a little walk, just hiking." He goes, "You're hiking in the middle of a wildfire."
Okay.
He goes, "Yeah, I just happened to be a little turned around." He goes, "Okay, because there's only one way in and one way out." He goes, "Oh, I had no idea." He goes, "Okay." He goes, and he had told his kids, "I want you to hide behind this bush, and I don't want you to move." He said, "Now, luckily," he's telling Charles and Harvey this of TMZ, "luckily my kids listened to me."
Yeah.
Right? Then the next thing he asks this guy is completely spooky. He says, "You wouldn't happen to have anything in that backpack that would, I don't know, be detrimental to the area, such as lighter fluid or a blowtorch or anything that could set a fire, would you?" And the guy says, "I don't quite like your line of questioning." Not no.
Yeah, that's not really an answer.
Right. Not no.
Or it is. It is an answer.
It is an answer. It's an affirmative answer, right?
Yeah. Oh.
He just says, "I don't quite like your line of questioning." He goes, "Oh, well, is there a reason for that?" He goes, "You wouldn't happen to be harboring those materials in your backpack, would you?" He goes, No. I just have a safety kit with me." He goes, "A safety kit? And what would be in your safety kit?" And the guy goes, "I don't think that's any of your business." Well, he goes, "It is my business, because this area has been through a lot. And we all make it our business around here to make sure we're all
Good
safe."
for this guy.
And at that point, the guy starts to turn around and walk back down the trail. Well, at this point, the guy gets a hold of the firefighters that are right at the base of this trail. So this guy is walking right down towards these firefighters and a few cops that are down there. So he manages to get a hold of them. They arrest the guy. And sure enough, in his backpack, lighter fluid and a blowtorch.
Oh my gosh. Why? What is wrong with people?
He was coming up to set the hills on fire.
I just, what is the motivation in that? I don't get it.
Now, I don't know. Some of these fires, Jess, out in California, I think there were some people that were legitimately trying to start fires. And you may ask yourself, okay, why? Well, you had award seasons that were coming up. Maybe people were trying to send a message.
Yeah.
They had no idea with the Santa Ana winds that they would spread that quickly and that much damage would be done. But maybe it's a consortium of people that are trying to send a message. Maybe it's individual people that are, maybe they're not organized, that are trying to do some sort of damage.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, just seeing my friends who are out there posting about what's going on and realizing how far apart the fires are too. So it's not like a spark is jumping from one to another.
Right.
And there's no logical reason for that to be happening other than somebody's lighting fires.
That's right. You're exactly right. And you're right. It's not a fire that's joined by by, it's not, like you said, it's jumping from one place to another. It's not like it's being joined from fire to fire to fire. There's no commonality between everything.
Yeah, which screams arson.
Yes, it does scream arson. Well, these two people from Oregon were arrested for reportedly impersonating firefighters and using an illegitimate fire truck in the Palisades fire evacuation zone. That, according to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department on Sunday. According to LASD, the Los Angeles police officers patrolling the area on Saturday noticed a fire truck that did not appear to be legitimate. Sheriff's deputies then made contact with the individuals in the fire truck as they attempted to enter an evacuation zone. The occupants claimed to be from Roaring River Fire Department in Oregon, and agency deputies said was not legitimate. Now, keep in mind that with this effort, you're going to have different fire departments that are coming in to try and help.
Right.
And they're piling on to do what? To try and make it worse? I don't get it. Deputies also noticed that the individuals were both wearing turnout gear and CAL or California Fire t-shirts. They also had helmets and radios in their possession. Both suspects, 31-year-old Dustin Nell and 44-year-old Jennifer Nell, were arrested for impersonating a firefighter and entering an evacuation zone. The truck, which was purchased at an auction, was also impounded. Dustin Nell has a criminal history in Oregon for criminal mischief and arson. So he's got a record.
Yikes.
The case will be presented to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for filing consideration tomorrow, Tuesday. We're recording this on Monday. Anyone with information about the case is asked to contact the Major Crimes Bureau at 562-946-7853. If you prefer to remain anonymous, you can call LA Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or 8477. We know there's been looting. We know that there's continued arson attempts. I don't get what the goal is here for the complete destruction of California. I don't get it.
I don't either. I love California.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful and people are so happy out there. And
yeah. I
mean, everyone I know, I don't know. I don't understand why people do things they do that are unkind, but
yeah, I don't get it either. I absolutely, the time I've spent in California, I absolutely love it. I love the climate there. The climate to me is perfect.
You can't beat San Diego where my daughter goes to school.
Yeah.
It's like perfect every day.
Yeah. So I don't get the ill will, to me, it's live and let live. If it's a jealousy thing, get over it, build a bridge, get over it.
Yeah. Or we don't like them because they're too liberal. I hear people saying that. I'm like, well, they're all together and they're happy.
Yeah.
What do you care?
Yeah. Let them live. Live and let live.
Don't move there then.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I don't believe in doing something to somebody no matter what they believe. It's live and let live. Let people live their lives. Let people live their lives. Speaking of, this next story is unusual. We got this from a listener of ours. By the way, if you have a story for us for Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, send it in. Tim@darknessradio.com. We'll read it here on the air. This next story, Jess, has to do with a black cop who was accused of trafficking his white wife while flying to their honeymoon destination.
What?
Yes. Holy racism, Batman. An unusual story indeed. A retired police officer headed to Florida for his honeymoon was falsely accused of human trafficking by a traveler who spotted the ex-cop, who is black, with his new wife, who is white, and believed he was witnessing a crime in progress. That, according to a bombshell federal lawsuit obtained by The Independent. In September of 2022, newlyweds Anthony Williams and this may explain it. And Katsarina, I believe it is Shasholka, were aboard American Airlines Flight 2408 from their hometown of Phoenix, Arizona to Miami, when a fellow passenger became suspicious and reported the mixed-race couple to the cabin crew. according to the complaint. The passenger claimed that the 63-year-old Williams was transporting 34-year-old Shasholka against her will, an obvious example of racial profiling and object discrimination, it says. He had no reason to believe that Shasholka was in any danger, the complaint goes, which includes a selfie of the happy couple took during the flight of themselves smiling and enjoying themselves. I'm going to show you this selfie here, Jess. You tell me.
Did you say he's 60 and she's 34?
Yeah, he's 63, she's 34. You tell me, does she look like she's being trafficked in this selfie?
Nope, she looks quite happy.
That's right. I think it looks like a happy couple that they're just on their way to Florida to have a good time.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, no trafficking going on there. They look like a happy couple on their way to go have a good time. Boy, oh boy, man, oh man of Shevitz. For the rest of the story here, nevertheless, crew members took the passenger at his word.
Oh my goodness.
Now wait a minute. Okay, how do you not know? Okay, so you probably come up, you've asked them if everything's okay, if they'd like something to drink, maybe you'd like a little snacky snack, whatever. At no point did Shasholka go, help me. Or give you the international high sign or whatever it is, or point to a tattoo or anything to show you that she's being trafficked. Right?
Right.
I think she's okay. Why would you think that this guy who doesn't know them from Adam is right? Oh, people. Wow. There's a song by Public Enemy called "By the Time I Get to Arizona." I think Chuck D was right. That's all I'm gonna say. So they took the passenger at his word and, without doing any of their own due diligence, told law enforcement that Williams was trafficking his own wife, according to the complaint.
Wow, we're just going to make this a matter of fact.
Yeah.
With the police.
In 2020, well, mind you, this was in 2022, September 2022. They couldn't have just asked them, by the way, are you together? Or, we hate to ask you this, but there's a racist behind you who thinks that maybe you might not be together. Can we see some ID? Hate to do this. Upon landing, this is a quote, "Our clients were falsely imprisoned by American Airlines employees who escorted them off the plane and were made to wait, confused and embarrassed, as the other passengers were deplaned and walked by them," the complaint goes on. Aww. That is the worst thing ever. Williams and Shasholka were then questioned by officers with the Miami-Dade Police Department, leaving the two humiliated, the complaint contends, which says the entire interaction was captured on camera.
That's just crazy.
My God. The experience has since caused the two mental pain and suffering, sleeplessness, paranoia, panic attacks, fear, anxiety, and embarrassment, the complaint states. In a phone interview on Tuesday, Williams told The Independent that he contacted American the next day and was told to file a complaint online, but has never heard back since. Of course, yeah, file it online. He said the episode continues to affect both him and Shasholka, who recently had a panic attack while the two were flying to Dubai. I don't blame her.
Wow, they're really traveling.
Hey, when you're retired, I mean, he's a retired cop, you've got time.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah. He got a hot wife who's 30 years younger, and he gets to travel all over the world.
He's living the life.
Heck yeah.
Right? There's nothing in our interactions the entire flight that would be indicative of somebody who was being held against their will, Williams said. We were just two people having a good time. Yeah. And I mean, they're smiling, having a good time in the selfie. I mean, what would make you think that anything was happening? Attorney Jasmine Rand, a noted civil rights crusader who has represented the families of Trayvon Martin, an unnamed black teen who was shot dead in 2012 by an overeager neighborhood watch captain, and George Floyd, an unarmed black man strangled to death in 2020 by Minneapolis police, filed the suit on behalf of Williams and Shasholka. My client is a retired police officer, Rand told The Independent. He spent his life fighting crime, and now to be accused of a crime so heinous as trafficking his own wife is unfathomable. He's committed to fighting for justice for himself and for others that have suffered racial discrimination at the hands of American Airlines. Doesn't surprise me that it was American, by the way. I'm just saying. An American Airlines spokesperson said in an email, American strives to provide a positive experience to everyone, except for if you're a mixed couple. No, I'm kidding. Who travels with us. We are reviewing the allegations of the complaint. I don't think they're reviewing it too hard. I don't know if you've ever filed a complaint with American, but you don't hear for like 6 months to a year. And even then they say it's your fault.
They're just like, we're hoping if we ignore this, it will just go away quietly.
That's exactly what they do, Jess. Yeah. And even then they send you a nice summary at the end of the year saying it was your fault. And they're taking no blame. The carrier has a pattern and practice of profiling racial minorities, according to the complaint. It goes on to lay out details of 3 specific instances in which American allegedly mistreated black passengers in recent years. Would you like to hear about them?
I'd love to.
All right. Well, in September of 2023, professional guitarist David Ryan Harris, who's played with John Mayer, David Matthews, and Mariah Carey, was accused of trafficking his own children on a flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles. Well, technically you own them, so you should be able to traffic them, right? At least take them from place to place. That's technically trafficking.
Sure.
Yeah. Jesus. Upon deplaning, Harris and his sons Truman and Hendricks were intercepted at the top of the jetway by an American Airlines employee and 4 police officers who had been notified by a flight attendant that called ahead with some sort of concern that his biracial children were not his children, but they were unresponsive during an interaction with her.
Oh, my.
Maybe they had their headphones in. Just saying.
Maybe they're ignoring you like they probably ignore most adults at that age.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they just didn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Maybe they were rock stars' kids. Go figure. American later expressed regret for what had happened by saying in a statement, our flight attendant in question wanted to make sure that you were aware that they sincerely offer a heartfelt apology to you and your family for their actions and the result that their actions generated. Because we didn't realize you were a rock star. Sorry. Can I get free tickets and backstage passes? Right. In January of 2024, 3 black men who did not know one another and were not seated together were kicked off American Flight 832 from Phoenix to New York City after a white flight attendant complained about offensive body odor.
What?
Yeah, holy 1950 Batman.
I just thought that's part of the flying experience.
Yeah, and normally it is, yeah. I know a lot of people who don't shower that probably should before they get on a flight. This, according to a lawsuit the trio subsequently filed. 5 other black passengers were also removed from the aircraft. The men's complaint alleged the case was later settled in a confidential agreement. American told The Independent at the time that it committed to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment to all customers, just not if you're black. I made that part up. American is such a bad airline. I'm just saying. The following month, Pamela Hill Veal, a retired black circuit court judge, oh yeah, they went after a judge. That's probably the worst thing you can do, was seated in first class. Well, what was she doing there? Aboard an American flight from Chicago to Phoenix, but prohibited by a flight attendant from using the first class lavatory, because why would she be there?
What the heck?
Instead, the 70-year-old Hill Veal was instructed to use the restroom at the back of the aircraft. How classy can you be, American? Oh, I hate American Airlines. Hill Veal, who, again, was 70, was instructed to use the restroom at the back of the aircraft. Oh. Williams and Shosholka's complaint states, this shortly before landing, Hill Veal used the first class restroom anyway. Good for her. After which the same flight attendant threatened her with arrest after she did so.
Why?
because you used the bathroom while being black, I guess. I don't know. Hillville was escorted off the plane and met by police, which declined to arrest her. Good for them. I hope she pulled out her ID, which showed that she was a judge. And I hope the judge turned around and said, I hope I see you in court.
Yeah, no kidding.
American Airlines and its employees had a duty to protect Williams and Shishulka from false accusations of criminal misconduct and of misconduct that could lead passengers to being removed from the aircraft, threatened with arrest, and subjected to racial profiling, harassment, discrimination, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. As dictated by federal law, their complaint argues, Rand said on Tuesday that American Airlines had no excuse for falsely accusing my client of human trafficking of his own wife. And it is yet another case of clear discrimination and racial discrimination at that. By the way, American has 21 days from January 9th, the date Williams and Shishulka's lawsuit was filed, to respond to the allegations. After they get done pissing down their leg, they'll probably be trying to think of something. I'm not sure what it'll be, but it'll probably be, we don't like black people. And that'll be it. Yeah. That'll be all they'll come up with.
That's just crazy. I would hate to work in the legal department for American Airlines. They seem to get in a lot of trouble.
Right? That'd be the worst job in the world, wouldn't it? American Airlines legal department.
So. They probably get paid really well, but
how much money would you? There's not enough money in the world to work in legal at American Airlines.
You're like, isn't. I have to defend you against what? Again?
You did that again?
Come on, guys.
Jesus. Our next couple of stories here, Jess, have to do with why Florida is such a bad place. Yes, we're going to Florida.
It's very entertaining, though, Tim. I do like Florida because it makes me laugh.
Well, these are kind of... The first one is a very cruel and unusual story. The next one is a sequel story.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's a sequel story. And it's a very dumb crime by a very stupid criminal. But it's got screen printing involved. So you're going to like it. I'm going to say a headline that's going to make you laugh. He pulled it out of my hand. But it's not what you think. Video shows a Florida man attacking an 83-year-old woman outside of a store and snatching her $200 winning lottery tickets.
What?
Welcome to Florida.
Not cool.
No. A Florida man's behind bars after he was caught attacking an elderly woman in an attempt to make off with her lottery winnings. The Orange County Sheriff's Office posted surveillance video that captured the violent robbery on January 15th at a gas station. The footage shows a man deputies identified as Diego Tavares Fleury approaching 83-year-old Ruth Monroe and trying to snatch her money. Monroe steps back and hides her lottery tickets, wary of Fleury's movements. At that point, a gas station manager steps outside to intervene in the interaction. Well, good for the manager. I mean, it's rare that you see that these days, but...
Yeah, he's a hero.
Yeah. Fleury, indifferent to the manager's presence, then lunges at Monroe and attacks her. The scum. The manager springs forward to grab Fleury to separate him, and all three are seen grappling on camera. Now, that's a three-way dance I'd love to see. 83-year-old woman, store manager, scumbag. I mean, that, you know.
I feel like the 83-year-old woman's probably pretty scrappy if she's in there fighting back.
I think so. I hope she's got a hurricane or something that she can hit him with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 83. I've never gotten punched, but the look on his face that he was about ready to, you know, and that's when he pulled it out of my hand and went that way, the woman told WESH of the terrifying moments. She started out strong and ended horribly with that statement. Fleury managed to steal Monroe's winnings, which amounted to about $200, and get away. Authorities caught up with him the day after the theft and took him into custody. He was charged with robbery, sudden snatching, and battery on a person 65 years of age or older. One of the gas station employees says that Monroe often visits to purchase lottery tickets while Fleury regularly loiters around the store. So he doesn't even buy anything. He's
on the prowl.
He's a loser. He's troublemaker. A. Sun Lee said he just hangs outside. He must be the shopkeeper. Lee and another regular customer says that gas station manager is always keeping a lookout for customers to ensure their safety on the premises. Well, good for him. I'm not surprised that the management did. They really did a good job around here. Like I said, keeping people safe, customer Debbie Davis said. So I never have any qualms about stopping here, no matter what time, day or night. Well, there you go. Management's on the lookout. He got involved. He gave a right cross, but the guy still got away with the $200, even though he was caught the next day.
Yep, and Granny has quite a story to tell.
That's right. She's like, they got him eventually. I gave it my best shot.
He's lucky he didn't break her hip or something. I mean, because really, you break a hip of a person who's in their 80s, that could be the last straw that leads to their
That's right.
full decline. And then you just murdered someone for $200 lottery ticket.
Well, that's the thing. It could have been murder over $200, and then he's up the river for good. Yeah.
Idiot.
Yep, that's for sure. Over $200. It's really not worth it. All right. Our next story, Jess, is a sequel story. Do you remember? I don't remember if it was you or Mally that was in this week about the bag that said definitely not a bag of drugs.
Yes, I do remember that one.
Let me introduce you to part 2. Definitely not a full bag of drugs. That's right, kids. We have a sequel because if it worked the first time, well, it's got to work a second time, doesn't it? Definitely not a full bag of drugs, part 2. And of course, it had to happen in the same state.
Hopefully it's not the same person.
Well, we'll find out. A Florida woman is jailed on narcotics charges after she was found with methamphetamine and assorted drug paraphernalia inside a bag labeled definitely not a full bag of drugs. Do you think the cops are going to go, oh, that's not a full bag of drugs? I'm not going to
Just a half full bag of drugs.
That's right. Just a half full bag of drugs. I'm going to leave that be. I'm going to go search the rest of the car. Maybe it's in the gas tank. Right. An Oregon woman was arrested 3 months ago when she was found with drugs stashed inside an identical zippered pouch. 31-year-old Taryn Acree was collared Saturday following a traffic stop in Brevard County. Acree was a passenger in a vehicle that was searched by cops who discovered meth, needles, digital scales, and other drug items among her belongings, which included the definitely not a bag full of drugs bag. By the way, if you'd like to see a picture of this young lass, this is her happily accepting her penance for...
Oh, she looks so sad. I don't think I've ever seen a sadder face in a mugshot.
Oh, look at her. Oh, she's just like...
Like, dang it, the bag didn't work.
Nah. I think it's the saddest face I'll see all day. That's what I think.
It is.
Yeah. Charged with possession of meth with the intent to sell or deliver, a felony and a misdemeanor paraphernalia count, Acree is locked up without bail in the county jail. That's a poet and I don't know it line. She is scheduled for February 13th arraignment. At the time of her January 18th arrest, Acree was free on $15,000 bond in connection with an arrest earlier this month for possessions of several baggies of meth. You could say she has a problem.
Think she might.
Yeah. The definitely not bag was seized by police. Where they put what in it, Jess? Definitely not more drugs. Yeah. Go figure. We call that irony in the biz. Just saying. Speaking of drugs, we got another drug story here. A drug counselor is busted for selling crack cocaine to undercover cops.
Oops.
Well, you always wonder what happens, when you go to treatment. And, you have to, if you end up going to treatment and, some people get their last little fix before they go, they're like, let me get high one last time before they put me in for 30, right? Well, you got to eventually turn over your stuff to the drug counselor. What does the drug counselor do with it?
Gives it to the rats.
Yes, give it to the rats in Houston. Wow, way to connect that to last week.
I know. That story haunted me.
Did it?
In a good way.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm hoping the rats are having a good time in Houston, too.
I think so, yeah.
But
what'd they do with it? What'd they do with it?
Well, in this case, a drug counselor at a New York State rehab facility decided, you know what? I might make a little extra money off that stuff. Why should I do the upstanding thing and flush it down the toilet or get rid of it when I can resell and make a little extra money off of the money I'm not making working at this rehab facility? Right?
Which I feel really passionate about rehabilitating people who use drugs.
Right. But first of all, let's not get it twisted, right? Number one, let's help the community and clean up drug abuse everywhere, right? Let's get clean, right? Crack is whack. But second, if crack is whack, let's help out the whacker ones in the community, right?
Mama needs some cash.
That's right. That's right. Daddy got to make a living too. That's all I'm saying. Daddy got to eat, right? So this drug counselor at a New York State rehab facility sold crack cocaine on multiple occasions to undercover agents because he's not that bright. That according to police who arrested the alleged dealer on felony narcotics charges. Acting on tips from the public, investigators began probing 54-year-old Alvin Lewis and subsequently identified him as a narcotics and dangerous drug dealer operating in Dutchess County towns about 80 miles north of New York City. On multiple occasions, Lewis sold crack to agents with the local prosecutor's drug task force. According to officials, while conducting surveillance of Lewis, police determined that he worked overnight hours as a counselor at Arms Acres, an inpatient rehabilitation clinic. Lewis was busted Tuesday evening while driving a few miles from his Wappingers Falls residence. Boy, that's a colorful name.
Wow, I want to move there.
Yeah, Wappingers Falls. That just sounds like you probably shouldn't touch yourself in that town, Wappingers Falls. Just saying. Subsequent searches of his home and vehicles yielded crack cocaine packaged and ready for sale. Oh, so he had it all ready for him.
Wow.
Yeah, how nice. Lewis, who is being held without bail, is expected to face additional charges. An online search of credentialing records maintained by New York's Office of Addiction Services and Supports returned no records under Lewis's name. So he may not be a legit drug counselor after all.
I'm shocked.
Whoops. Just saying.
Seems like maybe he had that job so he could get drugs.
You think?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to get a supply and not have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Smart guy. Stupid criminal. But
stupid criminal, but great supply guy. Just saying. He's thrifty. That's a good way of putting it. He's thrifty.
Yeah, thrifty.
Yeah. Our next story here, Jess, has to do with a crafty preteen. We'll put it that way. One guy not so clever, preteen clever. We're going on extremes here. A sheriff's office shared body cam footage of a 12-year-old being apprehended after taking his parents' car for a joyride. 12. Well, even 12-year-olds got to get around. Just saying. Sometimes a bike just doesn't get it done. Right? Did you ever think of just taking the parental unit's car at 12?
No. I had a deep and healthy fear of my parents.
Boy, you and me both. Yeah.
I would have never.
Yeah, I just think I wouldn't have survived the beating I would have got at 12 for taking the car.
Yeah. I took my bike everywhere. But...
Oh, yeah. I rode my bike probably 3.5 miles to go get comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah. But would I have taken the car 3.5 miles to get comic books? No, because I wouldn't have lived to come back. So, yeah. We go to Clare County, Michigan, where a 12-year-old boy was apprehended after he took his parents' car for a joyride, according to the Clare County Sheriff's Office. there wouldn't have been any joy for me coming back after that ride. I think joyride's a bad term for that. Clare County Central Dispatch received a request from the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office at 4:16 a.m. on Sunday, January 12th, to be on the lookout for a red 2000 Chevy Blazer. Boy, when he picked a joyride, he sure did, didn't he? A Chevy Blazer. You know, the coil goes out on that thing and you aren't going anywhere. I'm just saying. 2000 Chevy Blazer, the coil will burn up in that thing faster than you could ever believe.
You might as well have just ridden your bike.
That's right. You might as well have ridden your bike. You're gonna get further. The vehicle was reported taken by the owner's 12-year-old son, according to the Clare County Sheriff's Office. How would you like to be the one to make that call? My Blazer's gone. I know it's my son. Would you go get him? Right? Wouldn't you just as soon just called a buddy?
Oh, yeah, that would be a bad call to make.
Yeah. Deputies from the Clare County Sheriff's Office located the vehicle on southbound US 127 near westbound US 10 in Grant Township. The deputies conducted a traffic stop and apprehended the 12-year-old who was alone in the vehicle. Now, okay, this is where I have a problem. If I'm 12, right, and I just stole my parents' Chevy Blazer, I'm finding a girl to impress, first of all. Right?
I'm picking up my friends.
Or picking up my friends. Oh, right? Okay, so Jess, one of two things. I'm finding a girl, right? Hey, baby, I'll be back to pick you up later. Remember that commercial, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get one of those little Mr. Microphones. Second thing I'm doing, I'm picking up all my buddies.
That's right.
We're
going for a cruise.
That's right. We're cruising. You're not catching me alone. I mean, we're doing it up, right? The sheriff's office shared body cam footage of the traffic stop, which looks like it could be fun. After handcuffing the 12-year-old and taking him back to the patrol car, a deputy can be seen searching the back of the vehicle. Guess what they found back there, Jess?
What'd they find, Tim?
Evidently, he was about to go have some fun. They found a 12 gauge in the back and some weed.
No, that's a terrible combination for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, it is. And let me tell you this much. He wasn't going to throw the weed up in the air and shoot it. I'm thinking that wasn't the first plan.
Yikes.
Yeah. The sheriff's office said it was a 12-gauge pump-style shotgun with numerous rounds of ammo and a small amount of marijuana.
Holy crap. So he was going to get high and then play with a gun.
Unless it was Dad's.
Oh.
Either way,
Dang.
There's trouble in River City. The 12-year-old was taken to the sheriff's office where he was held until his parents picked him up. The report was sent to the prosecutor's office for charges. How would you like to be 12 and have a record already for gun possession and a weed charge?
Yeah, and stealing a vehicle.
Yeah.
So bad.
Boy, you're loaded up already at 12. You're already a dumb criminal.
Yeah, and we're already talking about you.
Yeah, we're already.
Kudos, young man.
You've already made the news, kid. There's nowhere to go but down.
I hope not.
Speaking of nowhere to go but down, I've got a unique story here, Jess. A criminal trying to be more than he already is. A criminal who thinks he may be going to heaven, but he's going straight to hell. But he's at least got the outfit if he's going to heaven.
Oh, is he dressed like an angel?
Close. Thou shalt not steal. Cops seek a Coconut Grove thief who's donned a Jesus Saves Lives t-shirt. Huh? You got to impress the big guy while you're doing.
There you go.
While you're doing dirt. Just saying. We go to Miami, Florida, where Miami police announced Friday that they were seeking a man seen on camera wearing a Jesus Saves Lives shirt who wasn't exactly following one of the 10 commandments. Police say the suspect hit at least 2 homes in the Coconut Grove neighborhood on December 29th, one at around midnight on Tiger Tail Avenue, and another at 1:15 a.m. on South Shore Drive. In the Tiger Tail case, police said the suspect, described as a white male donning the aforementioned black t-shirt and white ball cap, stole the victim's vehicle. So wait, thou shalt not steal is one of those 10 commandments. But what if he was going to turn the car into wine, which would be turned into something else? The blood of Jesus. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. Right?
He had to steal the car so he could get to the lake so he could walk on the water, Tim.
Right. I get it. I can dig it. In the South Shore Drive case, police said a victim told investigators that after waking up, it was discovered that the screen to the window was missing and several household items, including silver and gold figurines, were stolen. Detectives reviewed surveillance videos and believe the suspect may be responsible for more crimes in Coconut Grove. A Miami Police Department news release stated police released 2 CCTV screen grabs of the suspect on Friday. Anyone with information is asked to call the Miami Police Department Burglary Unit at 305-603-6030 or Miami-Dade Crime Stoppers at 305-471-8477. Tell them that Judas sent you. Just saying. Well, got to continue the theme. Yeah. Let's see here. Our next story was sent to us by one of our listeners. Again, if you have a story for us, send it in. A dumb crime, stupid criminal story, send it in. tim@darknessradio.com. All right. A fired Disney World employee pleads guilty to hacking their menu and removing life-saving allergy information.
Oh, no.
That is going to be really, really suck for some people. I'm just saying. Maybe all the way to death. Literally.
That's a bad day.
Yes. Michael Schur changed menus to falsely indicate that some food items didn't contain potentially deadly allergens, according to federal prosecutors. Although that kind of seems like a nerd crime, doesn't it? I mean, I'm going to call it what it is. I mean, it's like, I'm going to take over the world, but first I'm going to change the menu at Disney so all the allergens disappear. I mean, doesn't that...
What's the point?
Well, because, I'm going to kill all the kids with their peanut allergies. I don't know. It's
going to give everyone diarrhea or, really, to what end?
I'm going to make all their throats close. I mean, that's kind of... It's a weenie crime.
Yeah. It's not very tough, guy. I don't think you're going to get any, accolades from the men in prison if you come in and that's the crime you committed.
Right. But you know what he'd do? Because that is kind of, there's a Star Wars part to the Disney World park now. As they're all choking from their peanut allergies, he's going to hold his hand out like this and pretend he's force choking them like Darth Vader. That's
no, it all makes sense.
Yeah, doesn't it make sense now?
Yeah.
See, I put 2 and 2 together and gotten 6.
You're so smart.
Well, I try. A former Disney World Resort employee has pleaded guilty to hacking into one of the company's computer systems and removing life-saving allergy information from restaurant menus. Michael Schur was fired on June 13th of 2024 for his alleged misconduct. He worked as a menu production manager, and his termination was considered contentious and not considered to be amicable. Boy, that's proper speak, isn't it? According to a federal court complaint, Schur had pleaded guilty to knowingly transmitting a program, information, code, and command and intentionally causing damage without authorization to a protected computer and aggravated identity theft. I'm out of breath after reading that.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That according to a January 10th court plea agreement. By the way, if you ever want to know what a nerd crime is committed by or what somebody looks like who commits a nerd crime, this is it right here. This is Mr. Schur right here.
Well, he looks like trouble, Tim.
I'm going to make you all get your EpiPens out.
That is absolutely his voice, 110%.
Yeah. In a statement to Fox News Digital, Schur's attorney, David Hawes, said his client is prepared to accept responsibility for his conduct. No, I suppose. You'll rue the day you crossed me. Unfortunately, he has mental health issues that were exacerbated when Disney fired him upon his return from paternity leave. He added, "Oh, it was a revenge crime, Jess."
Great. He has children. Wonderful.
Oh, do you see where this comes from? If my child can't have peanut butter, neither can yours.
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah. No one was ever at risk of injury, it says here, and he is deeply remorseful for what had happened. What do you mean nobody was at risk of injury?
Yeah. So he got canned and then he hacked in and changed the menu as revenge against getting fired. But someone could have really gotten hurt. I mean, some of those allergies, like you said, they can freaking kill you, man.
Yeah. So what, I don't get what he means. Nobody would have gotten injured. Sure, certainly they could have gotten injured. If you're frying something with peanut oil and someone's got a peanut allergy, their throat could close up and literally kill them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Throw the book at him.
That's right. Hang him by his balls. Which is what it would sound like when you hang him by his balls. Fox News Digital has reached out to Disney, to which they said, "What are you doing reaching out to us for?" No, I'm just federal prosecutor said, sure, who they called a threat actor. Oh. To which after that, he had the biggest orgasm he's ever had in his life. Was responsible for the creation and distribution of all restaurant menus for the company. The biggest responsibility he's ever had in his life. Including the digital menus. None of the changes made it on the printed or digital versions of the menu, but they did result in $150,000 in damages, the company said. So wait a minute. Okay, time out. So he made the changes, but it never made it to any printed menus or digital menus.
So they caught it before it got too far.
Yeah, none of the changes made it on the printed or digital versions of the menus. But it cost $150,000 in damage.
Just in maybe, I mean, it can't possibly be in manpower to change it back.
Right. Did it hurt feelings? Is that I don't get where the $150,000.
Pain and suffering.
Right. Here's the quote. Namely, the threat actor manipulated the allergen information on menus by adding information to some allergen notifications that indicated certain menu items were safe for individuals with peanut allergies. See, I told you it had to do with peanuts. Mm-hmm. When in fact, they could be deadly to those with peanut allergies. The complaint states, those peanuts.
Scary.
All I know is I got some chipmunks in the yard that'll take care of that for you. Mm-hmm.
They'll eat your peanuts.
Yep. That didn't sound right. The allergen alterations focused on peanut, tree nut, shellfish, and milk allergens, prosecutors said. More specifically, the threat actor. Great metal band name, by the way. Threat actor. Added notations to menu items indicating they were safe for people with specific allergies, which has potential fatal consequences depending on the severity of the customer's allergies, prosecutors said. It is believed these menus were identified and isolated by Company A prior to being shipped out to restaurants and were not distributed further.
Oh, so they had been printed, but they hadn't actually been distributed. That would be expensive.
See, Jess, there's fail-safes.
Yep. Lots of proofreaders.
That's right.
But what a weird thing to do as revenge. Like, I'm really going to get them, and sit here and had code say.
And by the way, Jess, the name of the movie coming out surrounding this case?
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Faulty Allergen Menu. Yeah. Look for it.
Well,
coming this fall.
I'm a fan. I'll go.
I'm a fan. Hey, I love anything Harrison Ford does. So.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Named my dog after Indiana Jones, so that's how much I love him.
Hey, I named a chipmunk after him. So. Yeah. Although this Indy will eat the peanuts.
Yes, and safely.
And safely, yeah. Although that'd be something if I found a chipmunk that couldn't eat a peanut. If I had to give him an EpiPen shot every time he ate one.
What a sad life for a little chipmunk.
Oh, but it'd be funny, wouldn't it? He'd eat one and go, and you'd have to give him an EpiPen shot every time he...
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Indy, he could eat anything. He ate all of the Easter candy, all of the chocolate Easter bunnies, like the giant ones, and all the wrappers. He ate everything, and he didn't even get sick from it. He just
Seriously?
pooped. Yeah, he just pooped out the wrappers for like a week.
Jeez.
He had guts of steel.
Pooping out rappers, isn't that what LL Cool J does? Just saying. It's a joke. It's a little rap joke for you. It's only 30 years old. I'd give myself a rim shot, but that sounds dirty too.
An oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie. Speaking of dirty jokes, it's time now for our not safe for work portion of our program, Jess. If you haven't cleared the kids out yet, you probably should. Because we just did a story about allergens and we don't want them getting sick.
They might be allergic to these dirty jokes.
They might be allergic. That's right. You might need to get your EpiPens back out. If you're in front of your boss right now, you just don't want them to know that side of you. So you probably want to get rid of them too. We're going to do this segment in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. A man in Florida, here's a shock, used a GPS tracker to run into a woman. Notice I'm using air quotes.
Ew.
Yes.
Creepy.
He's skeevy and he's socially awkward, ladies. He's available. And yes, he works at Chipotle. There's another shock. Yeah. Yeah. Ladies, you ever been to Chipotle to get that favorite guac you love? And there's that skeevy worker going,
So, are you available later?
Yeah, so he can stalk me and make me a burrito.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guess what? He put a tracker on your car.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. A man used a GPS tracker to run into a woman in Florida in an apparent effort to rekindle a years ago sexual relationship. I can't believe anybody boffed this guy. I'll show you this picture in a moment. A Florida man hid a GPS tracker on the car of a female victim in an attempt to engineer a chance for him to coincidentally run into her. According to a criminal complaint, Jess, would you want to run into any part of this man?
Not on purpose. He looks like a little boy.
Doesn't he kind of look like a weasel? And not in a good way. I mean, like,
he looks quite young and with a little facial hair that just looks kind of scrappy and
yeah. I mean, there was a time in my life where I had a little bit of problem growing facial hair, but not like that.
Does he have a tattoo on his, like, coming up from his chest? Or is that like some weird curly
That is a tattoo.
chest hair?
Yes, that is a tattoo. Take a look at that. That's a tattoo.
Oh, okay.
It's probably a tattoo of, I don't know, a coupon from Chipotle for free guac, I'm sure.
A tattoo of an avocado.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Probably
So, did you want free guac today? Here's a code for it right here. Scan your phone on this.
Yeah. It's pretty disgusting. Investigators allege that 22-year-old Chipotle worker Tyler Michael Strack, future serial killer, purchased a Cube brand tracker from Best Buy and installed the device on the woman's automobile.
So creepy.
What do you want to bet that was the first time he ever got laid and probably his last?
No, it might have been. Maybe that's why he's so desperate to hang out with her again.
I think so. Chances are he's probably sticking it in your burrito too, if you know what I mean.
Ew, no, not like the guy with the donuts and the kid's birthday cake.
That's not sour cream.
Oh.
Just saying. The victim discovered the tracking device last year and contacted police using a series of subpoenas. Investigators linked Strack to the item's purchase and to an email provided upon purchase of the Cube tracker. Asked about Strack, the victim told cops that she had a brief sexual relationship with him. Emphasis on brief.
It lasted 2 minutes, Tim.
Well, you're giving him credit, Jess. You probably saluted quickly, shot even faster, and then she laughed hysterically.
Or cried.
Or both. I think
what a waste of my time.
I think he cried, actually, is what happened after all that. Yeah. She had a brief sexual relationship with him several years ago, which ended with no further substantial contact. I'm sure you could probably understand why. Yeah. During police questioning, Strack reportedly admitted purchasing the tracker and installing the device on the victim's vehicle. There was a Freudian slip. Installing the device on the victim's vehicle at her residence in an attempt to run into the victim. Boy, that is creepy.
It really is.
He knows where she lives, went to her residence, took the time to install the thing in her driveway.
Yeah. How do you think you're going to get away with that now anyway? Doesn't everybody have cameras? Like, we have so many cameras outside of our house. We see everything.
I'm sure he didn't care. Isn't that bizarre? Mm-hmm.
So weird.
Strack was arrested on a felony charge and booked into the county jail. The Clearwater resident was released from custody after posting how much bond, Jess?
Oh gosh, don't make me play this game.
You know what? I'll make it fun for you. You ready for this? You can guess in dollars or burritos.
All right. Well, burritos at Chipotle are not cheap, so I'm gonna go with 50 burritos.
That might be. You know what? I think you're dead on.
Come on.
$5,000 bond.
I'm going to go buy myself a lottery ticket right now, and I hope some guy doesn't try to steal it from me.
In the parking lot, yeah. I think that's dead on, yeah. Because it's what?
Go me.
I think it's what? How much for a burrito over there at the old Chipotle?
I would say $8 or something. I mean, I just got this for my kids last night, and the 3 of them ate for like $40. So it was over $10. I mean, right around there.
You can't eat reasonably anywhere.
No, not even McDonald's. I mean, I think McDonald's has back like their $5 menu or something.
Well, they're doing a thing now on their. I only know this because I did it the other day. On their app, they're doing a buy on the McValue menu. Buy one get one for $1.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I managed to eat for $11 the other day. But this is how I did it. So it was the buy one, get one for $1. I bought a Coke, and it was free medium fry Friday. That was how I managed to get everything for $11.
That's really nice. Well, and if you use the apps, you do get like, the frequent flyer bucks or whatever they call them, and Chick-fil-A, I get free chicken sandwiches like, I swear, every other week. So we must eat there a lot. It's like every time I go in, I'm like, I get another free sandwich.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the apps. Oh, only for that reason. Because
they're nice. And you can order ahead and they bring it out to your car. I feel like a queen.
Yeah, right. So do I. But that's because I wear a dress when I go there. So
I want to see this. You need to record it next time.
I will. Maybe I'll make it a feature on the website. Drive traffic there. Just saying. So Mr. Strack, we're back to him. The Clearwater resident was released from custody for 50 burritos. There's that. But no frequent punch card or anything like that. Do they still do punch cards over there at the old? No, it's pretty much app-based.
No, I think you have to do it on the app. There's no punch cards.
Yeah, okay. According to court records, Strack has only been previously cited for traffic infractions like careless driving, operating a vehicle without insurance, and driving a car with expired registration. So he's not a stranger to the courts.
Yeah, but he's not a hardcore criminal. Stalking's new.
Yeah, he's upgrading. Yeah. He finally found a gal that was worth it.
Like, I live in Florida. I have to up the ante here.
That's right. Everybody else has graduated before me. So there you go. We're not going much further outside the state here in Florida. We have another Florida story because Florida is officially the state of debauchery. So we're going to stay there. This story is only a couple of weeks old, 2 weeks old to be exact. I don't know how this one slipped through my grasp, but it did just. So we're bringing it back out because it's an oldie but a goodie. I know it's only 2 weeks old. Gunplay came after a male duo's foreplay. That's right. Because there's no trigger on that gun, if you know what I mean. An accused man was left with a handprint on his rear after all the excitement.
Oh, no.
This one's going to get spicy. And not Chipotle spicy. See what I did there? I tied it into the last. Yeah. Turns out a Florida man did not like it so rough. Police say that 61-year-old James Newland and his 33-year-old boyfriend, he likes him younger.
Yeah. We got a lot of those 30-year difference going on this show.
Yeah. A little spicy today. Repaired last Friday to Newland's bedroom to have relations, meaning they were sexually intimate.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Well, it says that in the story. So, yeah. I'm just...
Thank that writer for clarifying.
Yeah, I will. I'll send him a note. According to cops, the younger man said Newland told him he liked it rough, so he smacked Newland's butt hard enough to leave a handprint. That's pretty hard because I mean,
how hard do you got to smack a butt to leave a mark?
I'm trying to.
How long did the mark stay? Was it there for like 10 minutes? Did he have it the next day with some purple bruising? That's different.
Ooh, yeah. You got to rear up, right? I mean,
just a little red handprint. That's not that big of a deal. But if you leave a bruise, black and blue handprint on my ass, I'm going to be mad.
I'll make a note. That's the best joke in the world, isn't it?
I see where they're scribbling it down.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I need a visual. I'll make it. After Newland told that, people on video will love that. The little. I'll make it. After Newland told the victim to stop and that he was hurt. Oh, not just his feelings, but he was hurt. The man apologized, put his underwear back on. I love the visual of that too.
Wow, this writer is really just spelling it all out for us.
He is visual. He is a visual writer. Stop, I'm hurt.
I'm there.
Right? Stop, I'm hurt. I just see the struggle.
I'm sorry.
And it's not, and I'm imagining like big boxers, not like boxer briefs, not tight whiteys. I'm like the big boxers and having
big boxers, and he has really skinny legs coming out of these giant boxers, like he has his dad's underpants on right now.
Right, yeah, like clown boxers. So after Newland told the victim to stop and that he was hurt, the man apologized, put his underwear back on, and returned to the living room of Newland's Fort Pierce home. When Newland subsequently appeared in the living room, he allegedly grabbed a revolver from a side table and pointed the gun at the victim, saying, "You want to try me? And you want to fuck with me?"
What? Okay, wait. The younger guy who slapped his butt grabbed a gun?
No, the old man, the 61-year-old, this guy right here, Mr. I want to slap you on the hiney and have a little play with you.
Okay.
Said we're upping from handprint to gun print.
Yikes.
Yeah. Because evidently, if you don't like it rough, you're going to get it rougher.
Yeah.
That was the thing there. As the victim departed the residence, Newland cops fired one shot into the front porch's pavement. During police questioning, Newland reportedly admitted to the shooting, but claimed that he would never hurt anybody and was only trying to scare away his beau, whom he accused of striking him with a gas can.
Oh, my.
Where do you get a gas can in this scenario? I thought he was just sitting, like he was pulling up his underwear like that, right? And then he came out and he grabbed a gun and he was like, "I'll show you. We're not taking my handprint on your hiney." And And then he was walking out of the house and then boom, but where does the gas can come in?
I don't know. Maybe that's some weird kinky foreplay they had going on before the hand slap.
They wanted
butt slap.
Maybe they want to play human torch with each other. I have no idea. Newland, who smelled of booze and had slurred speech, gave consent to search his home, where cops found approximately 9 firearms and ammunition.
Oh.
Preparing for the apocalypse, are we? 2 other guns were removed from Newland's car because,
Wow.
a good drive-by is always nice. And cops noted they found a bottle of lotion located on the left side of the bed in James's bedroom.
Okay, I didn't need to know that, but thanks. Okay.
Everybody loves a good ditty party. Just saying. Newland was arrested and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, a felony, and 2 misdemeanor gun counts. Newland was released from the county jail on New Year's Eve after posting $25,500 bond.
Wow. That's a lot of burritos, Tim.
That's a lot of burritos. He has been ordered by a judge to have no contact with the victim. Would the victim really want to go back, though? I mean,
I should hope not.
I think he learned his lesson.
Yeah. Find someone else. You can do better, buddy.
That's right. You don't have to take it when you're being smacked on the hiney. Just saying. All right. I think now's the time we need a palate cleanser, Jess.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's been traumatic enough today. Yeah. But, and this is a proverbial big butt of the sentence, as in big meat butt, as in big smoking meat butt, as in barbecue. See what I did there? You were like, what are you talking about?
Where are we going, Tim?
You were thinking perverted. I'm thinking barbecue. You're
thinking food.
I'm thinking food. I'm thinking restaurants. I'm thinking you people can't handle your food when you go out. In other words, you can barely hit your mouth. It started with coffee, Jess. It started, You remember that? It started with, coffee's too hot. I spilled it in my lap. Oh my gosh, I'm going to sue. Remember that?
I do. Yeah. And she won.
Well, now it's gotten worse. We're going to, I believe it's Bexar County, Texas, where a jury has found the Bill Miller barbecue restaurant, which, by the way, I've been there. It's delicious barbecue.
It sounds yummy.
They found them 100% negligent for serving dangerously hot barbecue sauce.
Like spicy hot? Come on.
First of all, when a restaurant puts out their barbecue sauces, they tell you exactly how hot it is.
And the fun part is doing the hot ones and seeing if you can survive.
Well, and you're the one who's stupid enough to go, I like it hot. So you're the one who picks if you want hot or not. Me?
Right.
I'm a sauce wuss. So I go, mild, please. Mild, as mild as you can get it. Sweet and mild right here. Right? I don't ever pick hot because it's going to burn my tongue. Right?
Yeah. But if you do, that's on you.
And I use this thing for a living. Not here on the air. I just, I under the bridge passes, in order to make money.
You know, if I want to know where you.
It's a little
palate
joke.
Cleanser, Tim. Palate cleanser.
Oh, I'm sorry, palate cleanser. So the barbecue sauce allegedly gave the plaintiff a 2nd-degree burn, according to the plaintiff.
Oh, wow.
I'm not buying this for a minute, Jess.
I mean, is that possible? That's so crazy.
I'm not buying it. We go to San Antonio, where Bill Miller Barbecue has been ordered to pay approximately, are you ready for this? This is a lot of burritos, Jess. $2.8 million.
Why on earth do we let that happen in our court systems? That's ridiculous.
Isn't it?
Yes.
They've been ordered to pay approximately $2.8 million in a Bexar County lawsuit for serving dangerously hot barbecue sauce, according to a plaintiff's lawyer. A San Antonio woman sued Bill Miller Barbecue Enterprises for allegedly serving the sauce that gave her a 2nd-degree burn. Genesis Moneta. I'm reserving all comments. Filed the lawsuit in October of 2023 in Bexar County District Court. In May of 2023, Manita and her sister went to the restaurant located at Loop 410 and Old Pearsall Road in order to order breakfast tacos from the drive-thru, according to the plaintiff's original petition. She ordered 4 tacos and barbecue sauce. After Manita paid, the clerk gave her the order in a brown paper bag. Now, Manita drove directly to a space in the restaurant's parking lot to eat her breakfast, according to the lawsuit. When Manita took the container of barbecue sauce, she claims it was so hot that it caused her to drop the container and spill the sauce on her right thigh, causing a second-degree burn. She says it was physically hot. The lawsuit also stated that Manita's injuries and damages were caused by the restaurant's negligence for serving dangerously hot barbecue sauce and failed to warn her that it was hot, among other allegations. Court documents allege Manita suffered physical and mental pain, physical impairment, disfigurement, medical and psychological expenses, and lost wages. KSAT spoke with Lawrence Morales, Manita's lawyer, after the verdict was handed down on Friday. Morales said the same incident happened 2 years ago at the same restaurant. So wait a minute. This isn't the first time it happened. It's the second time that happened?
Wow, that's crazy to me. And a second-degree burn. I mean, yeah, they're painful, but you can still function. Like, I burn myself all the time when I'm making dinner.
But she held it in her hand, Jess. And then it dropped out of her hand onto her lap. She had to reach into the bag to grab it, to bring it out of the bag, and then it fell onto her lap. She didn't pick it up and then drop it right immediately back into the bag.
I don't know. I guess not. She dropped it on her pants.
Bill Miller's policy says they served the barbecue sauce at 165 degrees. It was served at 189 degrees on the date that Manita was burned, Morales says. They stated it's safe to serve at 135 degrees. Bill Miller allegedly served Manita the sauce 54 degrees higher than the state's guidelines. How many more people need to be burned by the barbecue sauce for Bill Miller to fix it? Morales said. He asked the jury. A Bexar County jury found the restaurant 100% negligent for the damages caused to Manita on Friday afternoon. We are very pleased by the results of this case, Morales said. Genesis wanted justice. Genesis just wanted justice.
Yeah. I guess. And the whole time I was thinking it burned her because it was spicy hot, but it was like physically hot. But still, 2.2+ million for that. Come on.
Reach into the bag. You can't tell by your finger. I have neuropathy in my fingers.
Yeah.
And I can't feel, but I can feel that this is somewhat cool to the touch.
Right.
And I have less sensation in my fingers than most people. If you can't pick up a container for 2 seconds and feel that it's too hot for you and drop it back in a bag.
Yeah, you wouldn't even get it all the way out of the bag.
That's right.
If it was that hot.
Then Jess, pardon my French, if you can't tell that, you're a fucking moron! You don't deserve $2.8 million. You deserve to have a burn on your leg.
Yeah. No.
She should give me half the money just for that lesson.
Like, we're doing it wrong, Tim. We're being responsible citizens. We're making good choices. What we really need to do is just be stupid.
I need to go to Bill Miller Barbecue. One, because they have excellent brisket, but two, to go get a burn and go make me some money.
Yeah, agreed. I'll take a burn with you. We'll just go dump some sauce on our legs.
Hey, we could go have a sauce party if you want. I mean, you know, yeah. I don't know who's driving, you or me, but
intern Yoko, she's gonna drive.
Yeah,
we're just gonna get all saucy.
We'll just get all saucy. We'll throw it at each other. Oh, but it was too hot. I want 8.2 million. I'm just going to throw a random figure out there.
Be like, you ruined our modeling careers.
That's
our
right.
Our legs are ruined.
I had a burgeoning chest hair career, and now I can't grow it from the scars.
I was a middle-aged mom thigh model before this incident.
Now look what you did. She had silky smooth thighs too, you assholes.
Now they're all scarred.
Look what you did. Shame on you. All right. That'll do it for today. Tomorrow, the big program, Supernatural News. And then Thursday, Jess, for your teaser. Seems like lately I'm saying an old friend's back with us. That's good, though. I like saying that. An old friend's back with us. An old friend who's good at telling some supernatural stories.
Ooh.
Yeah.
My favorite kind.
Yeah. And he's good at telling stories, too. And stories that have happened to him in particular. That's as much of a hint as I'm going to give you. The book that was featured today, Blood and the Badge, is available in the description of this program. I'll do my best Porky Pig impression. And again, I do highly recommend it. It's one of the best true crime books I think I've read in the last couple of years. So,
very good.
Very good book. And again, having to deal with the mob corruption within the New York Police Department and a couple of their own folks. I'm telling you, Eppolito, Caracappa, these are two bad dudes. You're going to want to read about them. I highly recommend you pick up this book. And our guest today, Mr. Cannell, is quite the author. And again, written for the New Yorker and New York Times, among other publications. He's one of a kind. So please pick up the book and check it out for yourself. It's a good read. So that'll do it for today. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. For Jessica Freeberg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for tuning in to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.